This is your host, Jason Snellgrove, and I will be your guide as we journey down the road to pleasure hunt or hitting the long trail to those great comp hunts. This is the Coonhound Collective podcast.
I tell a story, I was looking for just a coon dog pup and found my brother.
That steady mouth tree dog you hear there is the sound that we all long to hear with a raccoon above her. That dog is Witted. And the voice you heard there was Mr. Chuck Henson, and he's the owner of the Come With It dog. Today you're going to hear a story about her, but not only that, you're going to hear a story about friendships being built, brotherhoods being bonded, camaraderie being built from hunt to hunt, from people to people, and just the good-hearted kindness of this group of people we call coon hunters. That's what this sport is about, bringing people together with a like kindness. That was the passion and the vision behind this podcast, is to bring people from different walks of life together on the same level and build relationships with. That's what I felt like I've done with each and every one that I've interviewed, including this one, Mr. Chuck Henson. So without further ado, here's Mr. Chuck Henson, and come on with it. Thank you for joining us today on the Coonhound Collective podcast. Today I am joined by Mr. Chuck Henson. Chuck, how's it going?
Man, I'm doing good, Jake. How are you?
Oh, pretty good, man. Just got in from being in the snow, so I'm in the warm house right now, and that's a good thing. I gotta go back out later, but that's all good.
Man, that's good. That's good. Yeah, it's raining here. It's pretty bad.
Yeah. Chuck, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're from?
Jason, I was born here in Batesville, Mississippi, and currently still here. Married, got a beautiful wife, Ann Claire, 5 beautiful children, and 2 beautiful grandchildren, and I love it here. It's been a great place to me. I'm currently a captain at Panola County Sheriff's Department here in the county, and over all the deputies, and it's just been a blessing to be able to serve my community that I've lived in all my life, and born right here in Batesville. It just means a lot to me, and just still here coon hunting, and I just love it, man.
Well, we certainly appreciate your service to not only your community, but to anyone. So we really do appreciate that. How did you get started into coon hunting?
Well, Jason, I've kind of a long story. I started off as a child. My dad had coon hunted when I was an infant, and he had always subscribed to the Full Cry magazine and the American Cooner magazines. And when I was an infant, he quit coon hunting. He and my mom separated, and my mom moved back in with her parents, and my dad moved in with his. And naturally, I was spoiled, and just as a child, I didn't have a lot to do out in the country, just hunt and fish. And I got to reading those magazines and looking at them. And one day, I asked my dad, I said, "Tell me about when you was hunting." And he said, "Well, I started off coon hunting he hunted with some more gentlemen in the neighborhood here. They was just country coon hunters, and they had a blast." And he was telling me some of those stories, and he said, "Why are you thinking about wanting a hound?" And I said, "Yes, sir, I'd love to have one." And there's an older gentleman that lives about 5 miles as a crow flies through the country, and that raised black and tans, and his name was Mr. Willie Duke. And he was an old gentleman when I got to meet him. My dad carried me over there, and I say Mr. Willie was in his late 80s, early 90s when I got to meet him. He had an old pen down behind his house, and went down, and I could hear the hounds as we was up talking to him in the yard. We went down. He said, "Come on, let me show you all my pups." Well, it took him a while to get down there. Once you got down there with him and you saw those black and tan pups that he had, if a man loved a hound, he was never going to buy one and leave with it, because they were absolutely beautiful. He had raised them for years and years. Went back to some of that old Tennessee big wheel bloodline from years and years ago, comparing the pedigrees to some of the pictures I saw in the magazines and stuff. But he was a very, very unique gentleman. He had a love and passion for it that was undescribable. Sure did.
Okay.
We
So you got started
we
with
bought.
a black and tan pup then?
I did. Dad bought one of the pups, and uh, we I had it, and me being a kid, I couldn't. Now that I look back on it, you can't, going to school and doing those things, and about this time in my life, I guess I was probably 10. I just I knew then that I loved it, and I wanted to continue to do it for forever as long as I could, but I didn't get to hunt as like I wanted to, like as much as I wanted to. I mean, you had school work to do, and I wanted to go every night, and that became a problem. So I went through several dogs over the couple years that went by. As I grew older, I got to know some more gentlemen in the community that are great to my heart today. One of them I still currently hunt with. He's Mr. Rupert Morgan. He has Timber Ridge Blue Kennel. He's been a blessing to me. We went hunting night before last actually together and had a wonderful hunt. He's just a lot of enjoyment. He and my dad are the same age, and we spent a lot of hours together in the woods. I've learned a lot. I actually swapped over from black and tan when I started hunting with him and started hunting blue dogs, and had quite a few blue dogs over the years and had some good ones. I wasn't competition hunting then. I didn't get into the comp hunting until later on, around 18, 19 years old. I won a couple hunts with a couple of them dogs, just local hunts, and I think I made one of them a night champion back then. And it just grew on me and grew on me. And I went through some life changes, and as I got older and kind of got down on dogs, I think I had one dog at the time, and like I said, went through some stuff and ended up. I decided I wanted to try something different. I was looking for something that nobody else had. I wanted to try an English dog, and so I got to looking and I got on the internet looking, and I wanted a John the Baptist pup at the time, and because I saw several ads that people were raising them out of John, and I said, man, he must be a pretty nice dog, which I didn't know anything about him. I was just reading, looking in the books and reading stuff on him. And anyway, I saw where Brett Stevens from Missouri had had some pups out of John, and I called Brett on the phone, and we were talking, and we kind of hit it off. But unfortunately, he was sold out of pups at the time, and we stayed in touch, and I don't know, we probably talked once or twice a week for a while. Got to be really close friends. In the Winter Classic, I think it was the first year the Winter Classic came here, I invited Brett to come out. Like I said, we'd really hit it off. I knew Brett was a good Christian man, and I invited Brett to come stay at the house. I was excited about the Winter Classic coming here. We don't have many. Well, that's really the only major hunt that comes this far south, and with UKC, and we had planned it. So he come down, and we met, and they stayed with us that weekend. And man, we really, really became close. I was an only child, and Brett's he's the closest thing probably to a biological brother I'll ever have. He and Jamie Snyder, that's not actually family to me, And we hit it off, and as I was talking to Brett, I said, man, I really want a pup, a John the Baptist pup. So I got to looking at some more ads, and a gentleman from Hornbeck, Louisiana, Mr. Lynn Snell, had a litter advertised, and I called him, and I ended up purchasing a pup from Mr. Lynn, and we grew pretty close also, talking dogs on the phone back and forth. And I got the pup up here, and we talked about how he was doing and everything, and we're talking one day, and he had mentioned a hound to me over the phone, a little bit older dog that he had started, and she actually had a first place win on her. And he was telling me all about her, and he mentioned her name one day, and he said, "Oh, with it." And I said, "Well, do you want to sell her?" Well, he priced her to me at the time, and I was bad about asking somebody to want to sell something, and I'd be in a situation where I didn't need to buy nothing at the time. And I had been in law enforcement, still working for the county here. And unfortunately, at the time, politics, I was out I wasn't working currently at that time, and I decided to go back to college and finish my degree. And we, you know, I wasn't in, my wife was working, but I wasn't working. I was just working odd and end jobs with Jamie Snyder. He does dirt work stuff, and I was doing that and going to school. And he priced her to me, and I mean it was a real fair price. And I just kind of told him, I said, man, right now I'd love to have her, but it just ain't right to take any money away from my family at the time. And well, as we was, I don't know, a couple of days went on, I was sitting at the kitchen table with my wife, and she was actually helping me with some algebra and trying to get that degree. And I heard my phone ding, and I got a message, and just kept working that stuff. And I was really struggling with that algebra at the time. And I guess 20 minutes or so went by. And I told her, I said, I need to take a break. Well, I went over and picked my phone up, and I read the message, and it kind of caught me completely off guard. I didn't know what to think. I said, this can't be. This can't be. I read the message, and this is what it said. It said, hey, Chuck, this is Mr. Lynn. I've been doing some thinking about what we talked about. He said, you know, a man trying to better his family, go back and finish his degree and all. I've been doing some thinking. I sold one of the last John the Baptist pups, and I've got to deliver that pup to a man out on the Mississippi and Louisiana line. And he said, if you can meet me tomorrow, I've decided I'm going to give you over with it. And man, it really caught me off guard. I didn't know what to say. I was kind of speechless. And but he had told me a lot about her as a puppy, and it just really touched me. And I took him up on the offer. I said, man, I'll be there. And so I went down, and I met him and Miss Snell, which just two of the sweetest people you'll ever meet. And he went over, and we met. I can't remember. We met at it was a chicken place. I do know that was a restaurant there. And he went over and got whitted out of the box, and I was out by the edge of the truck there on some grass. And he said, Chuck, I want to tell you about this dog. She's kind of peculiar to strangers. Well, she just come on over there to me, and he kind of led her that way. But he said, I've never seen her act that way toward a complete stranger. And he said, looks like y'all may be all right. And with it, I kneeled down and rubbed on her and brought her home, and we started our journey together. She's been a blessing to me, man. I can't thank Mr. Lynn enough for that. And as we talked, and I put her with it in a couple of local hunts, and we won, one here and there, and we won our share. We lost a few too, but as time grew on, she and I grew up. We was like a team. I just loved her, and she loved me, and I could tell she wanted to hunt for me, and perform good. As our journey started together in the comp world, they had another hunt that Mr. Rupert had talked to some gentlemen about bringing here to Panola County to the Civic Center, and that was the BBOA, and which they came that one year and had a big hunt here. I put with it in that, and I think that was in 2016. Yeah, I think it was in 2016. Yeah, she won high scoring female at the BBOA here, and right after that, they had the Mississippi State Hunt here, and I ended up winning. Got lucky and won reserve state champion. I was very blessed for that. And as all of our friendships grew, Mr. Lynn and Brett and I, as time went on, Brett and I talk all the time on the phone. And I was talking to him one day, and he told me, he said, hey, Chuck, you may get a phone call from a guy that's looking to buy a couple nice females. And I said, what are you talking about? And he said, well, I had a man, and I was telling him about Whitted, and he asked me, would you sell her? And I told him, I said, I don't know. He said he told Brad, but he didn't know, but he could call me. And that was Mr. Brad McDaniel. Brad had bought the Crow Dog. I know Brad had mentioned that to you before. but Brad had bought the crow dog from Mr. Seth Ish, and he was looking for some top females to breed him to. Well, a day or so rocked on, and Brad called me, and we started talking, and he's a super nice guy also. And we couldn't come to an agreement on anything, and I told him, I said, Brad, I don't want to sell her, man. I was, she was my heart, as far as coon hunting. And anyway, I made the worst mistake. And I know it's a lot of guys out there that can relate to what I did. I was talking dog business in front of my wife, and she heard some of the numbers that that he had offered me. Once she heard that, it was I had trouble. She said, Chuck, you need to think about it. She said, you're in school and still, and what could that money do for us and our family? And so I told Brad, I said, man, let me think about it. Well, he said, can I call you tomorrow? And I said, yeah, sure. So we talked the next day, and I finally made him an offer, and what I would sell her for. I gave him I did it, and wished I hadn't done it, but I told him, I said, this is what it's going to take to get her. If you want her, then we'll do it. And he said, well, look, he said, I'd like to look at her. And I said, okay. I said, well, I want you to look at her in the woods. The kind of, that kind of wasn't used to somebody offering me that kind of money for a dog. And I said, Brad, that'd be the only way I feel comfortable is just sell her in the woods under a tree. And he said, well, that's good. He said, when can you come over? And I said, well, I said, it'd probably be a week or two. So I think it was about a week out. We had planned it. It was also something else that came to my mind. Even though she was, a 5-year-old dog at the time, I said, man, I just want to get her checked. I mean, I'd wormed her every month. I've met, the usual we all do, but I just wanted to make sure she was 100% health-wise. And he said, well, I tell you what, he said, you take her to the vet, you get her checked. If she's 100% clean, he said, I'll pay for it. And he said, if she's not, then you can pay for it, and but you would have needed to take her anyway. And I said, okay, well, that's a good deal. So we went to the vet I took her the next day and had her checked, and she checked her just 100. He said she was healthy, just perfect. Everything, all the tests came out good, and everything worked out. So I called him back, told him, but he paid the lady over the phone for the vet bill. And we made a date. We set a date. I think it was like 3 to 4 days after that. And I didn't want to make that trip by myself, so I called a real good friend of mine, Mr. Doug Nestor, that has trailer hound kennels. And Mr. Doug lives about an hour south of me. So I called him. I said, Mr. Doug, how you doing? He said, good. I said, you want to make a trip with me? I said, I'm going over state with it to show her in the woods. I said, Brad made me an offer on her. And I said, I told him I wanted to let him see her in the woods. And he said, yeah. He said, I'd love to see that crow dog too, Joe. And I said, well, we'll set. I told him the date. I said, I'll pick you up that morning. And we left, and we headed to Georgia. I think it was, we got a little sidetracked, so I think it took us like 8.5, 9 hours to get to Brad's place. We got down, it was already dark, and it was a group of guys there, and he had a couple of handlers there. I know Todd Sellers was there, a couple other guys at the time, and we all met, and we went down the road there a ways. And I didn't know where I was at. I was lost. We get down to a field, and we drive around these fields and get to the back, and they stop, and he said, you all ready? And I get over with it out, and I turned her loose, and she looked terrible right off the bat. I guess that ride, she was kind of sticking. But anyway, she managed to go out there, and probably in about 20 minutes or so, she treated a layup coon, and Todd walked out there with me, and we found the coon, and he said, well, she's got him. And as we come back to the truck, Bradley never left the truck. He sat on tailgate with Mr. Doug, and they talked. I said, Brad, I'd like to see her, I want you to see her go one more time. And they said, yeah, sure, we'll just move around here a little ways. And I didn't know it, but they had crow in the truck. And as we got to the second place, I seen them get a dog out. And they was gearing old Crow up, and I had went to the back, got Whitted out, walked up there where they was at, and he said, "Well, I think we're gonna turn old Crow loose with it and see what they'll do." And they both put on a show. They Whitted went out, struck. She got struck first. Crow struck. I still today really can't tell you which one of them trees. They sound a lot alike, and but they come on the tree together. It was pretty close. I still argue with Todd about it sometimes. I think Whitted got the tree on him, but I was talking and we didn't hear. We couldn't hear real good. And went in there and they had a coon. Anyway, we let them out and walked back to the truck. Brad said, "Why don't y'all follow us up to the shop?" And we went up there and got out of the truck. He told me, he said, "Chuck, I want her." Man, I'm gonna tell you, that's when the tears started kind of flowing a little bit. I didn't really want to sell her, but I knew what I needed to do for my family at the time, and it was a blessing. And I knew Brad would take real good care of her, and I was excited. I did make a deal with him where I'd get out of the first litter, I'd get pick of the litter, and then I'd get 2 more pups over a period of time at Brad's discretion. So I had that. I was thinking that the whole time. I said, "Well, I'll get these pups back." You know, I was trying to make myself feel better about it. I almost wanted to back out. I didn't. And I guess when I got back, hit that Mississippi line, I said, "Man, I wish I had sold my dog," you know. And time went on, and I came back, and I was kind of in the dumps, kind of almost wanted to quit hunting, but I still had a couple young dogs here and was messing with them. That was actually on August the 22nd of 2017 that I sold with it that night. And like I said, I was just sick for, I don't know, a month or so there. And one day my phone rang, and I remember the date very well. It was October the 4th, which was a short time from August the 22nd to October the 4th. Well, it was Mr. Nick Williams. I never talked to Nick before. He told me who he was, and he said, "Chuck, I was just going to call and tell you, I'll give you a courtesy call that I own." He said, "I own Whitted now." Well, that really threw me for a loop. And I it almost made me mad at the time, but because Brad and I had a deal, and the first thing that popped in my mind was the puppies. But man, overall, these guys are wonderful, and this is why. Nick, I can't, if you ever listen to this, I can't thank him enough for doing what he did for me. His exact words were, he said, "Chuck, he said, I heard you cried the night you sold with it." And I said, "I did." I said, "There's probably 5 or 6 grown men standing there," and I did. I said, "I'm not ashamed to say it." I said, "I love her and miss her now." And he said, "Would you like to buy her back?" And I said, "Oh, Nick, I can't afford her, you know." I said, "I appreciate the offer." I said, "Don't get me wrong." I said, "I'd love to have her back." He told me, he said, "Chuck," he said, "don't take me the wrong way." He said, "But I'm a very blessed man," and he is. He said, "We can work something out." He said, "If she means that much to you," he said, "me and her really don't get along that good." We made a deal, and I'll be honest, I'll tell anybody, he told me, he said, "Look, you don't have to pay me nothing, just come get her." He said, "She's still in your name." He said, "You just raise some pups off of her and sell them, and you pay me, and we'll, and he said, once you get me paid, I'll mail you papers back." And I said, "Man, you can't beat that." I wanted to leave right then. But I made a deal with him where I think it was maybe 2 days went by, and I headed to Alabama, which Brad and Nick had worked out a dog deal. Nick had an outstanding female that Brad had checked on prior to buying with it from me, and she is a beautiful hound. And I understood what he did, and I said, but I don't. Still today, I don't know the whole deal on that, so I'm not even going to try to tell you what transpired between them. But I know Nick ended up with it, and it just, with him being that, not knowing me, and letting me do that, I'll never forget it. So we actually met. I had a little contract deal wrote up, an agreement where the deal that we made, we both signed it. And I brought her with it home, and I started hunting her more and more and more. And she came in heat, and I bred her to the Coon Valley Singing Tap Dog and raised the first litter and sold the pups. And I'd go to Walmart and Walmart, send Nick some money. And this went on to the second, I think into the third litter, and I got Nick paid, and Nick mailed me my papers back. And it was just a touching thing. And the biggest thing to me is if the Lord gives you something twice, you better hang on to it. So we started back hunting, comp hunting again, and with it started, winning some, and put her in 5 English sectionals, and she won 4 of them. On the 5th one, I think she placed 3rd or something like that, but I was very humbled that she performed like that for me. And as time went on, we just stayed in the woods, and they had the Winter Classic coming back up in 20, and we entered the Classic again in 2020. And I had hunted with it also in some RQEs and zones. We actually went to the zones 4 times, and I never could get through the zones. I drew some nice dogs, get close sometimes. I miss it by 25, just getting in, making to that top 100. Just never did. But along with the Winter Classic, we got in at 20, and I'll get to that in a minute. But we went on to the Winter Classic and had a lot of friends coming up: Josh Green, David Bradley, Brett, Jamie Snyder, Russ Jones. Mr. Lynn, I talked to him, and Scott Henson, Mr. Rupert, and all the guys was planning on meeting here. And a lot of us got together here at the house, eat breakfast, and just the camaraderie was great. And we've been doing that for several years at the Classic. And in 2020 was a special year in the coon hunting world for me. Josh Green and his wife, Christina, they had a pup out of with it, the male singing rock dog, and Christina actually hunted him Friday night at the Classic and won overall, first place. And that day we were walking around, all of us in the Classic, and a lot of the guys that I just mentioned, we'd see each other. And I noticed one of my friends, Jimmy Smith, had on a hat, had team football on it. And I thought it was pretty cool. And I hunted with football a lot. Jimmy and Scott Hence hunting, and he's an outstanding hound. And I thought when I saw that hat, I said, I wish I had some team come on with his hats. And as I went down the floor, I run into a lady that were making them, and I ended up, I bought 5 of them and give them out to, I think I give Jamie 1, Brett 1, Colton 1, and John Wyrock 1, and I kept 1. And we wore those hats around there all day, just talking coon dogs and picking at one another. I told them, I said, yeah, I'm gonna put it on you boys tonight and all that, man.
Hey guys, this is Jason over at the Coonhound Collective podcast. I'm here today to tell you about one of our sponsors, Conky's Outdoors. Whether you need a few dog collars or the whole setup, they can fix you up. They have a wide range of products from hound hunting to fishing. My friends over at Conky's Outdoors can help you out. You can order online at conkysoutdoors.com. Call them at 904-692-1568, 904-692-1568, or if you're in the Hastings, Florida area, go by and see them. Again, that's at conkysoutdoors.com, because we support people who support our way of life.
Sure enough, the Lord blessed us, and with it, she really performed good for me that night. Brett went with me on that cast, and just the camaraderie and the friendship out there that night. And I think she treed 3 singles by herself and ended up getting a piece of 2 more trees. I think I got a second on one of those trees, and second on both of them, I think. Anyway, I think I ended up with 875 plus, and I on the way back, I was nervous. I was excited and nervous at the same time. I said, man, you think I got a chance to win it with this? And they said, I don't know, man, you'll be up there pretty high with that. So we ended up, and she did. She ended up winning first place. So that was a blessing to have a puppy of hers win it overall Friday night and her to do it on Saturday night. And I was just real humbled, man. It was almost unbelievable at the time, the feeling to have with all those good hunters coming in here and fine dogs that I've got a chance, a lot of them, to hunt with over the years to pull off a win like that. It was real touching. And as I went back in those English sectionals, I hunted her in. Brett had mentioned, hey, you want to go to English days? And I said, yeah, I'd never been. And I was excited about that. Well, I didn't realize that, I won a deal to hunt in the all English hunt on Thursday night. Got up there and I entered her, and she did a real good job. And got lucky, man. Again, I caught the right break, and we got in the final four at the Invitational, and she ended up winning second overall that night. And like I said, I said, man, she was just clicking for me, and ended up I'd got her qualified, and we went into the zones. I hadn't hunted in Arkansas a lot, but I said, I looked at the locations of the zones, and I asked Brett, I told him, I said, man, that's kind of halfway there. They had it listed as Walter Ridge, and ended up hunting them out of Imboden. And I told him, I said, man, that's kind of halfway for us. Let's go meet there, and let's hunt out of that zone. So that's what we did. We went up, and once again, she just performed for me and got a good. I got beat one night, but I had enough. She scored high enough on Friday night that I got into the zone. I'm in the top 100 overall, and got a chance to go to Peru, and had a real good friend that lives 25 miles, I guess you'd say, from the clubhouse up there at Peru in the fairgrounds, and Mr. Kevin Zimmerman. I talked to Kevin on the phone. He said, hey, man, won't you come by and just stay with me while you're up here hunting at the World? And I took him up on that. And he had been down, too, also with Brett during the Winter Classic, stayed with me. And now it's just so many guys across the country that I've gotten to be so close with, and the camaraderie. I can't, if I'm missing anybody, I'm sorry. It's a lot of y'all out there I think a lot of. And that helped me out a lot. My boy went with me, Braden, my middle boy, and we got to spend some time with him, just riding pretty good ways to Peru, and I enjoyed that, just spending time with him. And we got up there, and the first night, I drew some really tough dogs, and I guess it was probably 6 minutes to 7 minutes left in this cast, and up to that point, we really hadn't done no good. Whittitt was working around the edge of a cornfield and went into a hardwood patch, and I was looking at my Garmin. The other dogs had went the opposite direction. I heard Whittitt locate, look up once, and she was bumping around, and I really wasn't really excited about the way she was sounding, but she came on, and it got heated up a little bit. She probably moved 100 yards and gave me that big locate, and I treed her, and I knew the time would be up by the time I got to her, and we was walking to her, and another good friend, Les, Brett knows, good guy. We was walking in, and he said, I think she's gonna have this one. And time, I mean, it's probably down to a minute or so. We got to the tree, and sure enough, we looked up there, and we had a big old coon, and I realized I just won that cast in advance, and that really got me. And we went on back to the club, and man, I was so excited, I didn't know what to do. And they told me, said, well, you got to go back out to a coon by yourself. Man, they sometimes that's easier said than done. I was really nervous then, but we went out. We had I had a guy take us out, and Mr. Kevin went with me, and we went out, and I guess it was probably 13 minutes. And that was the longest 13 minutes of my life. She had opened up a couple times and located, went in there, and we found that coon. It man, I was really lost for words at the time. I didn't know what to do. I said, man, Kevin said, well, you'll probably get in the top 20. So we got back, and I realized we was in the top 20, and we just kept working. And I drew out the next night, and which I drew the Uncle Cracker dog, which really put on a clinic. I think he treed 2 coons, and Whittick treed 1, and he went deep, and he treed the 3rd coon, and Whittick, but she was struggling. She treed a den, a old hollow snag, and could find the coon there, but it was obviously a den. And anyway, we circled that up, and she went toward the Cracker dog, and they ended up treeing, probably 50 yards apart, if that. And the big, huge trees, well, the trees actually touched, and Cracker had his coon, and they didn't really want to score this one, and so I got nervous. Anyway, I backed up out there and shine, hit my red light. Ended up, my Whitted had a coon, and it all worked out, but Cracker beat me, and he deserved it. He put on a clinic and really looked good. Got back, and anyway, it put me out, but man, I didn't know where I would place, and ended up placing 12th overall, and Cracker advanced, and I was rooting him on in because dog really deserved it. He put on a show, but man, I was just humbled there with a lot of good friends, and Mr. Tom Corbett and John Anderson. It was a lot of good people there, and we were just sitting around talking dogs, and it was just a humbling experience. It like Brett had made the statement one time. Once you get there, you want to go back, and I plan on going back. I probably won't take Whitted back. I said I was retired there, had her in a pen, and Mr. Rupert and I were hunting the other night, and I carried her. I've got a young female I got from Josh Green that's out of Vapor, that's doing a nice job. And anyway, I told Mr. Rupert, he said, man, old Whittett's still looking real good. He said, you may ought to consider it. And I said, well, I may put her in it one more time here at the Classic. It's coming up a few more days from now. And so we may give it one more run, just see how she does. She's getting old, but she performed like a 4-year-old the other night, really looked good. So like I said, man, it's been humbling. We've had an experience together that you just have to be there with her to know. But we're gonna get to all get together again here at the Classic in a couple more days, and all the guys will be coming in, and the camaraderie will be good. All my buddies will be coming. I know Brett's coming to stay, and John Wyrock, and Colton Jones was going to come. I don't think he's gonna get to make it. I spoke to Mr. Lynn last night. Mr. Lynn Snell, but where I got with it, I think he's got a super nice female, and he said he may get to come. So I'm looking forward to that. All those guys coming in.
Well, that's I was going to touch on that after you said that, because some people don't realize the friendships you build along the way, even friendships that you don't realize that you're building a friendship at the time. You're just doing a deal on a dog, or at a hunt, or whatever. But just in your story, the people that you met along the way and built friendships with, and was able to stay with the guy up in Indiana, and at the World Hunt, and then you having people in at your place when they come down to the Winter Classic. I mean, that's a big part of what this sport is.
My wife didn't like the idea at first, me inviting them guys, and I told her, I said, Ann Clay, I said, I'm a good judge of character. I talked many hours with Brett on the phone, and they're like brother and sister now, and you're right, man. It's just the camaraderie, and his wife Melanie, she's a blessing to me also. They've been through some sickness here lately, and Brett and them came down and actually brought Mel down here to the hospital where my wife works at, Baptist Hospital in Oxford, and she was having some trouble with COVID, and and then Claire got to make sure that she was okay and check on her, and that was a blessing too. I think their hospitals were full up there. Like I said, man, I know the Lord put, used something that I love, coon hunting. I tell a story, I was looking for just a coon dog pup and found my brother, and that's a blessing.
Yeah, for sure.
It,
And that's what it's about. I mean, it's about the dogs and treeing coons, but it's about the people too. And that's something that we need to try to relay on to the next generation of hunters out there, the youth that are out there to when they get out there and meet these people and build those relationships with. That's what keeps this sport going from generation to generation.
yeah, you're right.
What what other so with it's getting on up there in age, so you got any projects you can tell us about that you're working on now?
Well, I'm planning on breeding her again. She, like I said, she's in good health and still taking good care of her. She's an athlete, and I plan on breeding her at least one more time, and I plan on breeding her to the little horn dog that Colton and Mr. Russ owns. Brett actually had raised a litter of pups off of Lori and Horn, and they're doing real good. I raised an all grand litter, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe it'll be a 3 generation all grand breeding her to Horn. And I've been hunting with Horn a lot. Well, not a whole bunch, but enough that I like him. And when I'd go up hunting, Colton and Brett and I, we'd go hunting, and we'd hunt with it, and Lori and Horn, and at the time, and we really had a lot of fun running up and down them hills. And they'd split off, and we'd have a coon, Horn have one, Lori'd have one. We just had a big time up there hunting, and I liked the way he performed. And you're not going to meet any nicer guys than Russ and Colton Jones either. They've also been a blessing to me, friendships over the years. Colton and Brett both spent time with my boys and took them turkey hunting, and me also. And they come down and, like I said, hunted with us and stayed with us. It's been a blessing. Like I said, I get lost for words sometimes just thinking about all of it and the friends that I've made over the last 10 years, especially in my life and in the coon dog world. It's really some good guys out there. I'm to the point to where I told Brett that, once you go to the world hunt, you want to go back again, but once you've been, it's also I'm at peace with what she's won and accomplished. The friendship now to me and the camaraderie of just being together and getting to share something that we all love is nice. I'm just gonna kind of see what I got. I've got 2 pups over here out of Red Cloud. Brett went ahead and bought that semen, and I actually had bred with it to Red Cloud, and which goes back, his Red Cloud was out of Hard Time Rocky, and Powers Hard Time Red Cloud was his actual name. And then, these puppies they're coming 2 years old. Some people ask me, said, "Man, why you keep hunting with it? Won't you just put one in the hunts?" Well, the male dog's ready, but he's not ready. He's to that point to where, he'll tree a coon, but to me, I'm just not going to rush and put one in a hunt until I'm satisfied, just pleasure hunting them here. I guess I'm comparing them to with it, and I just gotta just keep hunting them and to get them to that point, and they're at that breaking point. They could just break over any minute, but my job has kept me from hunting like I want to. I'm down about 1 or 2 nights a week during this. We've been real busy, but I plan on picking it back up this spring and getting back after it real hard and finish these dogs this year. And I plan on hunting one of them in the Classic next year for sure.
Yeah, well, I know what you said there about. I think sometimes dogs are put into these competition hunt situation sometimes too soon when they're not ready. And I'm kind of the same way. You know, I try to make sure he or she's ready to go and to perform, because you know you can go out and have a bad performance and put a bad name on a dog pretty quick if you know trying to push them before they're ready, no matter the age. I heard John Strickland say this on another podcast, that when he got Big Country, Ashley kept asking him when he was gonna hunt him, when he was gonna put him in a hunt, and he kept saying when he was ready. This is Big Country. He'd already been hunting in I think the CKC World or whatever it was, but he wasn't ready to perform at the level John wanted him to. So I think that's an important message, that somebody out there has got a dog and they're ready to get out and get into a hunt. You know, make sure they're ready. Make sure they're ready to go out and perform the way you want them to.
Yeah, I guess that's what you explained it a lot better than me. It's kind of like if the dog ain't ready, where when I was younger, you just want to go participate. You want to be in the hunt, you know. Now, to me, just going to the club and supporting the club and having camaraderie with the guys, just sitting around and talking, I'd much rather do that than put a young dog in a hunt that's not ready. You know, that's where I'm at right now, and I this has been the worst year as far as hunting for me. Being in law enforcement, it's like I said, it's been hard. It's getting crazy out there, and we're working from can to can't. But I told the sheriff the other day, which they're also a fan of Low With It, and we have a Facebook page, Panola County Sheriff's Department does, and they had posted on there and supported me while I was at the World Hunt, and I appreciate that. And so it's been a deal. I told him, I said, I'm fixing to start back hunting. He knows the class is coming next week, and I told him I was going to be absent a few days, and he just smiled. He knew it was my time to get away and spend time with my coon hunting family and friends, and just enjoy it.
Yeah, well, and that's important when you have a job. You have someone, your boss, that understands those things and those important things in life, for sure.
Yeah, he's a big turkey hunter, so come springtime, he's which I love it too. But he told me, he said, "Yeah, I'm gonna spend a lot of my time in the turkey woods this year." So we all love different things, and that's what makes it so good.
Yeah. Well, before we move on away from the subject of dogs and pedigrees, why don't you real quick tell us what old Whittett's out of?
Yeah, with it, she's out of Top Gun, her sire's Top Gun, and Mr. Lynn had pistol packing Peg, and she was a Grand Night female, and Peg was directly out of Briar Creek Zeb, and that, but Top Gun was out of Wilcox Thunder Tybo, and backyard's Lady's Brandy, and that crossed to me, which naturally because of with it, but the Wilcox and the Briar Creek breeding together, to me, has been good, with these pups also and all. That's mostly, man, I got a chance to, another thing is important to me. Mr. Jim Ridge, he came here and came to my kennels and talked with me, and that's a lot. And these guys, I was actually hunting some dogs for the public when I was going to school too, and I got a training pen here. Got to meet a lot of guys and that have a strong connection with pedigree. And Mr. Jim Ridge, he's one of the guys that he never changes. You see him at the Autumn Oaks or the Winter Classic or anywhere you see him, he's the same guy. He's always got a smile on his face and always greets you, and that means a lot to me. And just being able to hunt a dog that goes back to the Briar Creek stuff, and Mr. Larry, he's a good guy. I've gotten to talk to him several times, and I knew he had been the Brett with him winning the World Hunt with Top Gun and all that. And actually, Brett had raised a litter of puppies off of Gun and Star, and I hadn't got my hands on her yet. He's bringing her to the class. It was 3 of those pups, and Mr. Larry got the male pup, and Brett sold the other female. Brett and I are actually co-owners, and all of my dogs. I put Brett. He, like I said, he's just like a brother to me, and we're gonna keep this female out of guns. So I'll have a half sister to win it here at the Classic. So that's gonna mean a lot to me to get her started. But yeah, those 2 guys have done a lot for the English breed, and you can't beat them, man. Like I said, I hadn't had a chance to be around Mr. Larry like I have Mr. Jim, but it's always a pleasure to see Jim when I see him. Sure is.
Yeah, well, that's what it's about for sure. Tell me about the training pen you got.
Yeah, I just well, like I said, in law enforcement, when you work for a county, you have sheriffs take different politics. You for several different reasons, you can be in 1 minute and out the next, and just some things didn't work out, and I took a break from it. And the sheriff that we got now, he and I have been really, really close friends, and so I took about a 3 or 4 year break from law enforcement. I worked part when I left it. Overall, I took it was about a 7 year break, not working at the sheriff's department, but I went to work at another local police department. I worked part-time there at Como Police Department, and law enforcement's just been in my blood. My great-granddaddy was a sheriff here in Panola County back in the 60s, and as a boy, again, like I was looking through magazines about the coon hunting, I'd see pictures of him and got to see his badge that he wore and all that. And he had a pistol that he carried that I ended up that I own today. Yeah, it was a blessing. Yeah, but I was in and out of law enforcement, and I told Ann Claire, I said, I want to offer something else where I maybe make a little bit more income, starting some pups. And my dad said, well, Chuck, you like messing with them hounds. Why don't you we'll build a starting pen. We'll won't you offer to train some puppies for the public? And I said, I don't know. I said, let me think about it. And it didn't take me long, a week or so. And I told him, I said, yeah. I said, I think I'm gonna try it. So he helped me, and I built a 4-acre enclosure, and that was one of the things that Mr. Jim had told me. We had talked about. He came down and looked at it, and he told me I actually built it around my old kennels that I've had for years, and they were actually inside. I got tickled, which he was right. He told me, he said, you gonna want to move them kennels. He said, you don't want them inside your pen. And as time went on, I see what he was talking about, because which it wasn't really a distraction to the other dogs as I was working them, but my daughter lived pretty close, and they made a lot of noise, dogs in a kennel, when I was working them on coons in the pen. And I had spoke with Mr. John Anderson, and he had told me, he said, Chuck, why don't you kind of, instead of hunting dogs in the big woods, why don't you start like a pup program and, put some handle on some and stuff like that. So that's kind of what I went into more than hunting them in the woods, just kind of a kindergarten starting program, handling them, getting them treeing in the pen and teaching them the basics. And where I got with that is I like to work them about a month, and the ones that really came on and started treeing good in the pen, and then I would move them on out into the big woods with the big dogs and hunt them. And it worked out good. I was successful with some people. They carried some pups on to the super stakes that I had started, and it was a pretty good deal. And it was a little bit of an extra income to my family at the time, but it was a full-time job too. It's kind of like having a dairy. I mean, you had to be there and work them, and it all worked out. But I did that for 3 years. I'd get 4 pups a month usually, and it worked out. And like I said, it really helped my family at the time. And then the sheriff now, which is Sheriff Shane Phelps, we were talking, and he decided he had prayed about it and decided he wanted to run for sheriff, and he did. And I got in there with him, and he offered me a position, and I've been with him ever since. That's been a blessing, and I quit training for the public and just kind of started back messing with my own pups, and that's where I'm at now. But I ended up working more than usual this year. Like I said, I didn't get a chance to hunt them like I wanted to, but this spring I really plan on putting it on the red cloud pups, and I've got a pup falling right behind them out of Lone Survivor, and with it I did breed the Lone Survivor, and we're actually getting some good reports on those pups as well. I bred with it 5 times. I bred her to Tap 3, the Coon Valley Singing Tap dog that Josh and Brian, Josh Green and Brian Lott had and have and still have. And now, Brett bought that semen and Mr. Jack, and we bred to Red Cloud. And those pups, they're really intelligent. They're real smart. She's had several out of each, couple out of each litter that really have come on, and I think it's 5. If I'm not mistaken, that are pretty nice out of the Coon Valley Singing Tap dog, and the rock dog that Josh Green and Christina own. He's one of them. I'm hoping that about 1 or 2 more with it's gonna hit that reproducing list, and that's something I really hadn't focused on. But Brett and I were talking some numbers the other day and looking at the total numbers of pups that she's got, and she's gonna make that list, and I'm kind of excited about that.
Yeah, that's that would be awesome for sure. Well, we've been going at it here for a little while now. I usually try to close this out with some type of coon hunting story, funny or serious or whatever. You got a story you can tell us?
Man, I got to thinking about, I'll say this one night this goes back to my younger years of coon hunting. You think a man, a dog, it may not be funny to a lot of people, but it ended up being comical and funny to me that particular night. The dogs, a couple of buddies of mine, we were hunting and we was actually hunting on the core property, and we haven't had any wild hogs much here to speak of. They're starting to come in our area here, but it was just something I wasn't used to seeing. The dogs went in there and got treed. Man, they were treed solid, it sounded like. And all of a sudden, as we started walking to them, they just shut up and took off and acted like they were looking. I mean, like they were just looking at the coon. And I said, man, something ain't right. Well, this went on for, I don't know, a couple times that I treated my dog, and they just leave. As we started to them, we'd get 300 or 400 yards to them, and I was thinking bobcat. What could it be? And it didn't sound like they were bayed or anything like that. It sounded like they were trees, which we were in the hills, and the dogs carried good where we was at, because we was in a lake bottom, and we could hear them good as we kept walking. And I said, man, my dog ain't gonna mess with no trash. He just ain't. And that's what I learned then. Don't say what a dog won't do. But I guess he was kind of like me. I guess he was caught off guard. He just hadn't been around it. And as we got in there closer to him, we come up on a big creek, and it was deep. We couldn't get across, and I done got aggravated at the time. And we had to turn around, walk all the way back to the truck, get on the county road, drive around. Well, I guess I got lucky and drove pretty much up on top of them where they were at. Got in there about 100 yards from them, and me not thinking, I jumped out with I had my 22, and I ran down there toward the dog to see what it was. I got a little bit too close, and they was in some cutover on the edge of some hardwoods. it just caught me off guard, man. I run up on them and they were bay kind of, and I shined my light, and it was this big boar hog standing there, and I was like, oh man. Well, I kind of laughed under my breath, and I said, well, let's tell the story. And I hollered back at my other buddies, and I said, man, we're gonna eat good. And I didn't get it out of my mouth, but I said, we're gonna eat good, and this thing charges me. And which I had my bibs on and my snake-proof boots, and he actually hit my boot. And my dog, my old blue dogs at the time, I guess he saved my life, really, I guess, because this thing ended up having 2.5-inch tusk outside his lip, and it's a wonder he didn't cut them dogs all up, but they managed not to get hurt, and ended up I got a round off on him, and he come at me again, and the second round hit him pretty good, and the old blue dog grabbed him. I ended up trying not to get some more rounds off without hitting the dog. By that time my buddy got down there, and it was a wild night, and I learned my lesson then not to say what one won't do, because they'll do it. But I guess they just had never seen a hog before, and we tied the dogs back after the hog was down, and we carried the hog out, and we had a big cooking. But out of all the wild nights that I could think of, that was probably one of the wildest. That run up on a wild hog and him charge you. That's just one of the stories. I'm trying to think, and I've had heard some crazy things at night. You wonder what it is, but that's just one night in particular that I can think of that comes to mind is the old hog.
Yeah.
I guess that's the story I got.
That's pretty good. He wasn't going down without a fight. He wasn't going to be bacon without a fight first.
That hog ended up. He ended up weighing a little over 300 pounds, and he was an old warrior. I don't know where he come from. I don't know if it was some that the game and fish had turned loose or something, but we just wasn't used to seeing them here. There's a lot of people that we have them, a lot of them in the Delta, and they're starting to migrate in here, but and come in, but we just don't see them much. That's the only one I've been here 48 years, and all the nights that I've hunted, that's the only one I've had an encounter with, and I hope it's the last.
Yeah, well, being from southeast Alabama, I've had some encounters with them. When I lived down there, I haven't seen any since living up here for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Chuck, I think we about shined this tree. We've been at it for over an hour now, and I really appreciate you taking the time to be on the podcast today. Before we sign off, I know you mentioned a few guys on there. Is there anybody left out that you want to thank before we sign off here?
Man, like I said, I got a list of guys that in my mind, just Brett and Jamie and Russ and Colton, John Wyrock, and Kurt and Curtis Daugherty, Chops. I didn't mention Chops in the broadcast there, but I think of him just like a brother. He comes down to and stays with us during the Classic, and he's been a blessing in my life also. And you got Cody, Josh Green, Christina, and Mr. Lynn Snell, and Mr. Keith Martin. He's another nice friend of mine from Louisiana that has always rooted me on at the hunts, and they've all supported me when we were out at the major hunts. And David Bradley and Scott Henson, like I said, Mr. Rupert Morgan and Mr. Tommy Wren were the two older gentlemen back when I was, like I said, a child that I can't thank enough for letting me go tag along and to keep me going in the sport. And there's one more thing I'd like to say to everybody is just stay involved, get the youth involved. Maybe some kids from church, take them hunting in a group, and it's a dying sport. We've got to keep it going, and anything that I can do for the youth here, my boys, they go and they love it. They both at the age now where they're more interested in the girls. So I understand how I've been there before, and I'm hoping as they settle down, they'll get back into it with me, and at least on the pleasure side and the comp side if they choose. So we'll just see how that works out. But yeah, man, I give a shout out to all those guys. I love every one of them.
Yeah, well, that's what it's about, is building relationships and friendships, and it's for sure find a youth, take them hunting, whether it be at your church or neighbor down the road. That's what it's about. That's how a lot of us got started, was somebody just took the time to say, hey, do you want to go coon hunting with me tonight? And that hooks a lot of them right there. So that's very important.
Yeah, it's, me being in law enforcement here, and like I said, speaking of the youth, there's just not a lot to do. I mean, growing up here, you get out and get into mischief. It's not a lot going on, in these little local communities and all. And I think, just sometimes that's what it takes, is just somebody throwing the offer out there to take some child hunting and fishing. They just may not ever get that opportunity. And I'm going to try to make it a practice myself to do that more. The kids here, I actually talked to my preacher about it, and I'm going to try to get a hunt up with some of our youth here at the church, and maybe one or two of them will take a liking to it and come join us, because it's fun. It's been good to me and kept me out of a lot of trouble.
Yeah, well, you ain't the only one. He kept me out of a lot of trouble too. But, well, I appreciate you taking the time to be on the podcast today. If you don't have anything else, we'll sign her off right here.
All right, Jason. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys, for listening to the Coonhound Collective podcast today. We really appreciate you taking your time out of your day to listen to the podcast. If you don't mind, head over to Facebook and give us a like, and head over to Instagram and give us a follow. It's both at the Coonhound Collective. Also, if you would like to reach us here at the Coonhound Collective, you can reach us at thecoonhoundcollective@gmail.com. If there's someone that you would like to hear on the podcast, or a product that you would like to hear talked about, please send it to thecoonhoundcollective@gmail.com. Thanks again. Have a great day.